Hello there. I'm talking to you from the virtual world of Second Life, where we're going to take a little tour to see how virtual reality and virtual worlds environments can help you design and figure out how to do real world museum display work. I'm standing in front of an exhibit in Second Life called Discovering a Lost Kingdom. It's about the Kingdom of Naples and the Two Sicilies in the late 18th century, around the year 1785. And the exhibit was done to give people an idea of what the kingdom was like, its history, its culture, the important people that lived and worked in Naples at the time, a general context for the world of Neapolitan Italy. I'm dressed in 18th century dress to capture the era as I go through the exhibit. Let's take a look. Our exhibit is set up with an entry or welcome desk. It's one of those things that you could do in setting up your own exhibit out in real life. Here we have orientation materials and information available from the signs here. The signs not only have lettering on them, but they also will give out note cards, which are the equivalent of having an audio button attached to a particular display. We can start over by taking a look at the history and the commercial ventures of the Kingdom of Naples in the late 18th century. Our exhibit creators have created a timeline that gives you an idea of how the Kingdom of Naples developed from the Renaissance up until the late 18th century. It tells you about the politics, the rulers, and a number of the other important features of the kingdom. And as you can see, it's superimposed on a lovely painting of Naples in the late 18th century as seen from the Bay of Naples. On the adjoining wall, we're going to take a look at how Naples was situated in the larger world. This was the era of Marie Antoinette and Louis XV in France, and of the Bourbon kings in Spain. Those were the kings that were descended from those who sent the Spanish Armada to attack England many centuries earlier. You can see here a map which shows where Naples was located, which is right about here. And you can also see a map, next to the map, some military uniforms and some information about why Naples went through a bit of a renaissance of its own during this time period by not getting involved in European wars. As it turns out, Naples was also a center of commerce. And was a shipping port that traded both with Asia, Africa, and Northern Europe. Our exhibit also includes a set of information plaques about some of the major political, religious, and cultural figures of the time. The exhibit itself will give you note cards, which from these little tags right here. And the note cards are the equivalent of having, as I said before, an audio clip to tell you the same thing if you press a button. Now let's go around to another side of the exhibit. Along the back wall, we show a number of beautiful paintings that were done of Naples during the time period. And with them, we've paired information about how Naples was viewed by others living during the period. For example, Goethe, the famous German playwright and author, visited Naples on his journeys through Italy, and this is one of his famous quotes about Naples at the time. You might be interested to know that the King of Naples at the time, King Ferdinand IV, was very progressive when it came to both manufacturing and taking care of the workers of the kingdom. He not only built a lovely palace near Naples, the Regia Caserta, but he also included on the grounds a dormitory for workers and one of the most advanced silk and weaving factories in Europe at the time. This part of the exhibit shows you about how silk and brocade was made and how he set up a community of workers that had reasonably good working conditions, food and job security, a very great social advancement for the time. Notice as we walk through the exhibit that it was possible to figure out what the layout should be and how to arrange things so that people could move throughout the exhibit freely, see all of the exhibits, and not be blocked by views of other things. At this end of the exhibit, we look at some of the more important cultural developments in Naples during the 17th and 18th century. Naples was known for its music, for its art, and for its architecture, and each bay in this particular part of the exhibit shows one of those aspects. Here we have some information on music, and we could get ourselves another note card or information by touching on the little sign here at the base of this particular illustration. On this wall, we talk about the architecture of Naples during the late 18th century and some of the important architects that were responsible for it. In addition to being progressive with respect to workers and crafts, King Ferdinand was also very progressive when it came to education and established 4 conservatories in the city of Naples to educate young men both in the arts and the sciences. Naples therefore became a center of arts and sciences during this time period. Our exhibit talks about all of that, and it also talks about some of the famous operas. Here, the Serva Padrona opera by Pergolesi, and some of the more famous musicians of the time over in this area right here. Those musicians included Scarlatti and others. The final section of the exhibit talks about the art and some of the archaeology of the period. Naples is situated quite close to Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius, and became a center of archaeological work during this time period. But here, from each of these little signs, you can get more information about these various aspects of Neapolitan life at that time. On the way out, of course, we have our guest book, and we have a bit about what happened to Naples after the French Revolution. I hope you've enjoyed this little video and have begun to see how doing museum work and exhibit design in a virtual world can help you figure out how best to do it in the real world. Thank you for coming, and come back again.